This video is about Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. But let's start this off with every Hawks fan's favorite topic, Luka Doncic. Imagine if we lived in a world where Luka Doncic never existed. No Luka magic, no heir apparent to Dirk Nowitzki in Dallas. In this reality, the Atlanta Hawks just take Trae Young straight up with the 3rd overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft. And the Mavericks end up with Colin Sexton or something. Sorry, Mavs fans. After a stellar rookie campaign where he's unanimously voted Rookie of the Year, Trae Young comes on strong for his sophomore season. He finishes the year with an absurd stat line: 29.6 points, 4 rebounds, 9.3 assists, 44% from the field, and 86% from the line. Oh, but that last part, that wasn't theoretical anymore. Trae Young actually was decimal points away from 30 and 10 a night as a 21-year-old on his 2nd year. But the reason we don't unanimously respect Trae Young, well, it's because he was traded for that Luka Doncic guy. What's up, guys? It's Colin. In this video, we're providing a look ahead for one of the most exciting young teams for next season, the Atlanta Hawks. For those who've been around this channel for a long time, you would know that my cousin Renzo also writes some of the videos in this channel, and he was the one who wrote this one because I'm a little bit more lukewarm on the potential of Atlanta this season. We'll look back at how their season went last year, the moves they made this offseason, as well as what they need to figure out moving forward. We're going to be talking about Trae Young a lot, but then again, that's exactly how the Atlanta Hawks are right now anyways. So let's get back to Trae Young. Young averaging 29.6 points per game wasn't just impressive, it was historic. There have only been 4 players ever to average 29 points per game for an entire year by their age 21 season. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Shaq, and Ice Trae. Those other 3 are physical unicorns who look like they were built by some kid playing 2K. Trae Young, meanwhile, reminds you more of the kid with the controller, which makes it a lot more impressive that he was this productive this fast. Everyone's kind of been fixated on that other guy in Trae's draft that's on that list, but Trae has reached godlike offensive production too, and there's no reason to think he can't continue doing just that. But obviously, the problem with Trae and Atlanta hasn't been necessarily generating offense, but more so on the other side of the court. Make no mistake about it, the Hawks were garbage on defense last year. Atlanta was 28th in defensive rating, barely ahead of the Wizards and Cavs. For all Trae's offensive prowess, his lack of size and inability to defend gives a ton of points right back. The average offensive or defensive rating last year was 110.6. With Trae off the court, Atlanta's D rating was a very respectable, slightly above average 107.9. With Trae on the floor, their D rating ballooned to 116.1. That's a huge drop-off of 8.2 points. But this isn't exactly news. Everyone and their mom knows that Trae struggles on defense. What most people don't know is that his offensive production outweighs his defensive deficiencies by a lot. When Trae Young is on the court, the team's offensive rating is 111.2, good for 13th in the NBA above the Sixers and the Raptors. But with Trae off the floor, their offensive rating craters to 95.7. That's a 15.5 O rating crash. Not only would they be the worst in the NBA, they'd trail the last place Warriors by 8.7. To illustrate just how impactful Trae was on offense, look at the top 15 scorers in the NBA. If you take the on-off court splits of the other 14 scorers in the NBA, the average drop-off when they're off the floor was 6 points. Trae Young's 15.5 difference for his team didn't just rank first, it was off the charts, even compared to the league's most potent offensive weapons. Now, that could also be because those teams had better players, but 15.5 is massive. And let's be real, Trae is not the first offensively gifted guard that needs to be hidden on defense. Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving are living proof that you can find success with a weak link. Of course, Trae still needs to be better than the worst defender in the league if this team wants to sniff a title, but the hope is he can at least get to Steph Kyrie level. Both those guys still won championships because their organizations were able to surround them with the right defensive pieces to mask their deficiencies. But the Hawks weren't able to do that last season with Trae. Of the 5 guys Trae spent the most minutes on the floor with, 4 of them were net negative defenders. Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, and even Kevin Huerter all still have defensive potential, but relying on 3 inexperienced wings to flank Trae Young was a recipe for disaster. And Jabari Parker. You guys know that. The only player who could defend worth a lick was John Collins, but he was slapped with a 25-game suspension after just 5 games. By the time he returned, the season was already a lost cause. So maybe just don't play trash defenders with Trae Young. So from all this, we've learned that the Hawks needed to do 2 things. 1, surround Trae Young with actual capable defenders that have his back on the other side of the floor. And 2, add secondary offensive weapons to take some of the burden off Trae's relatively narrow shoulders. Good news, Hawks fans. That's exactly what your team did. Let's start with the defense part. The Hawks actually began their assignment way before the submission deadline. They traded for Clint Capella last season, which was an A+ move for what they needed. Capella provides the perfect backstop to erase any mistakes made by the team's perimeter defense. Now, this is important because the Hawks allowed the second most makes and attempts from opposing players within 5 feet of the rim. Finding a Gobert light? Check. Then there's rookie Onyeka Okongwu. He's considered by many to have the potential to be a game-wrecking defensive weapon. And while he may not have much of an impact as a rookie just yet, he can definitely be deployed in spurts to disrupt opposing offenses. But on the defensive side, the addition I'm downright giddy for, or at least my cousin Renzo isn't a big man. It's Chris Dunn. Dunn is basically the polar opposite of Trae Young. He can't shoot at all, but man can he defend. Dunn ranked 2nd in the league in steals last season, but what's crazy is that he did it while playing 24.9 minutes per game. If you check per 36 leaders for steals, Dunn is easily number 1 with an absurd 2.9 steals per game. And the advanced stats back him up too. Defensive box plus minus measures the defensive impact a player has over the course of 100 possessions. There were only 2 players in the NBA who had a defensive box plus minus higher than 3 last season. The first, by a landslide, was Giannis, that defensive player of the year. And the second, it wasn't Anthony Davis, he was 3rd. Second was Chris Dunn. You can check every other defensive metric as well out there, and Chris Dunn's name will pop up without having to scroll down. Now, I hope you understand why we're drooling to have him next to Trae Young. Dunn can pick up enough tough defensive assignments while Young can focus on his scoring and playmaking. But Chris Dunn isn't your typical Tony Allen type of defensive pitbull that's a non-factor completely on offense. He's actually a pretty capable distributor as well, who averaged 5.1 assists per game last year. Playing with Dunn can allow Young to play off-ball on certain offensive possessions. This part of Dunn's game is invaluable as it's actually exactly what Trae Young and the Hawks need to get to the next level offensively. Trae's biggest threat is his 3-point shot. He shot 9.5 threes per game at 36.1% last year. Given the volume, that's pretty terrific. What makes it tough for him is that he takes 4 out of 5 of these threes off the dribble, and he makes those just 33% of the time. But on catch and shoot threes, he's elite at 46.6%. Among players who shot at least 1 catch and shoot 3 per game, Trae Young was 4th in the NBA, ahead of guys like Duncan Robinson and behind, your Seth Currys and JJ Redicks. But those guys are all off the ball shooters. Young has a chance to add that into the Hawks' offensive arsenal with Chris Dunn and also the addition of Bogdan Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic isn't exceptional at any one thing, but he's clearly good at everything the Hawks need in a secondary ball handler next to Trae Young. He can create his own shot, make plays off the dribble, and reliably stretch the floor effectively as a career 37% shooter and 40% off catch and shoot looks. Then there's Rajon Rondo. While it's not the best idea to play Young and Rondo together, having Rondo come off the bench to lead a previously destitute second unit is an absolute godsend for this Hawks team. Danilo Gallinari, meanwhile, gives them a stretch big who can space the floor and get buckets within the flow of the offense. Just for fun, their other stretch big options last season were, again, Jabari Parker and Dwayne Dedmon. Okay. Gallo has always been a hyper-efficient offensive threat, and mixing and matching him with John Collins and Clint Capella gives them a very solid big man rotation that can really adapt depending on the matchup. The Hawks effectively added 6 new pieces who each offer a unique, non-overlapping skill set that provides Atlanta with the flexibility they just didn't have last year. And these guys are just competent players. But the challenge now becomes finding the right combinations for them. The Hawks did what they needed to do this offseason, acquiring different puzzle pieces to surround their Spitfire superstar. But the problem is that the last time I checked, you can only play 5 players on the court. And they basically have a full roster of rotation players. Lloyd Pierce has his work cut out for him in figuring out which pieces actually fit and which they can throw in the dumpster. But no matter what happens, the Hawks may have to make a move this season. It's just a matter of who stays and who goes. And the main candidate for a trade would be John Collins. The fourth-year man was already being shopped during the offseason, and that's not going to stop given the fact that they threw bags at Bogdan and Gallo. Then there are the 3 youngsters I mentioned earlier in Hunter, Reddish, and Herder. Personally, I'm a fan of all 3 of them, especially Reddish, but there's still a lot of question marks in order to evaluate them properly. I don't think Atlanta can keep them all, and they'd be wasting resources anyway if they did. The Hawks need to prioritize figuring out which of the 3 are worth keeping for the long haul since they can't pay them all. But all in all, the Hawks are still in a very enviable position. They surrounded their offensive supernova with talented veterans on long-term deals that maximize his strengths. They also have 6 non-Trae players on their rookie contracts that can be used as trade assets for a big swing move. Being able to offer teams a package of John Collins and a combination of Reddish, Herder, and Hunter, plus picks can certainly net you something sweet. If they can bring in the right star in his prime to pair with Trae Young and the rest of this already good roster, the Hawks are going to be a force to be reckoned with. But with everything that's been said, it all still falls squarely on the shoulders of Trae Young. The Hawks made the moves they needed to make and acquired the assets to get him a running buddy down the line. But the Hawks will only go as far as Trae Young takes them. Now I, Colin, am not that high on the Hawks. I think they're going to make the play-in tournament, but get bounced out easily. But again, my cousin Renzo wrote this, and he wrote it while wearing his knockoff Peachtree City Edition jersey. And he said, "You're goddamn right he thinks Trae Young's going to be good enough to bring it home for Atlanta this year. He thinks they're going to make the playoffs and thinks they could even sneakily beat a team in the first round." But what are your thoughts? Leave a comment down below what you think the Hawks can do this year. What seed will they be in a much better, at least top-heavy Eastern Conference? Again, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We're here to make more NBA content for you. And again, we always try to do it in a smart manner. I'll catch you guys in the next video.